Hi, my name is Anastasio Dalde, and I'm one of the teachers for the HSLDA chemistry course. Anyway, let me show you how to set up your initial lab. You're going to need to do this the first time you try to take a lab, and so I have it set as one of the first assignments you take. First thing I'm going to do is click on Lab Initial Setup. And since I'm a teacher, I can't actually take the lab because I'm in the teacher mode, but I'm going to preview it. I think yours might be attempt or take this assignment or something like that, but I'm just going to click preview for myself. Now, the first thing we're going to do is need to get you familiarized with Google Docs. And so what you're going to want to do is, I'm sorry, I didn't read the directions. It says open the Google Doc and make a copy of your own, or make your own copy of the document to start working on it. Here's the link to it. Now, I have this linked into my Google Drive, and this document is made so that way anyone who clicks on that link can view it, but I don't want you changing it because if you start changing this document, the problem is all the other students who log on after you will see all the changes you made, and I want this to be kind of a master template. So the first thing I'm going to need you to do, and I have the directions written out right here, it says first, make a copy of the document. You need to do this by, and you only need to do this once. You don't need to do this every time you submit a lab. Just this first time. You go File and make a copy. The way I want you to rename it is I say do the last name, first name, and then type in HSLDA chemistry. So let's go Dalde Anastasio HSLDA Chem Labs. So now you have a editable copy, your own version of this thing, of this document, and it's creating it. The second step is after you do that, all you have to do is, or what I want you to do is, I want you to share the document with your teacher and everybody else, or all the other people that you deem important. So I want you to share your document with these 3 people at least. So the first thing you need to do is you click on share up here. See where it said private only to me? That means only you can see that. Only the person logged in under this email address up at the top right hand side can see it. I want you to share it with your teacher and also with this general chemistry Gmail account that we've set up. It's called hsldachem@gmail.com, and also one of your teachers. Your teacher will be giving you the email address to use, and also both of your parents or your guardians, whoever else you should want to share this with them, so that way they can see the updated programs. And then click on send. I don't need to do that because well, this is just an example. All right, the third thing I want you to do is, and again, you only need to do this once, is change the header. Now notice all the stuff in purple up here with the little pointy brackets around it are things that you can, that I want you to go in and actively change. When you submit the final draft or the final write-up of your document, I don't want any purple anywhere in the submission. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change the header up here. So I'm going to change this to Dalde, Anastasio. Actually, you know what? I'll do it first and last name. Anastasio T. Dalde the third. And I don't want it to be purple text. I want it to be black text. There we go. Cool. So the purple again is to kind of show you where you should look into and what you should replace. And then after you're done replacing it, change it to a black text. All right, so let's look at the actual document itself. You have a table of contents, and to update this table of contents, all you have to do is click on the refresh button, and it will update it and will change all the page numbers if any of the page numbers change and all of that kind of stuff. Or if you start adding in more tables and that stuff, it will update that. You just go to the refresh Now, if you make some changes, this thing doesn't automatically refresh the table of contents. You have to go in and actually press that little circle after you've clicked on the refresh button. You won't see it unless you actually clicked on that table of contents. So some of you might say, hey, I don't see that button. All you got to do is just click on that anywhere in this table of contents and you'll see it. You can also go directly to certain labs or anywhere on this table of contents because it's all hyperlinked. You just go click on here and it will take you to the first lab that you do. Alright, so the rest of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a little sample video or a sample lab on what you would want to do. Now you can turn to page 10 on your Microchem lab manual version 1 and we'll go through this one together. This is kind of a freebie. I'm going to do this just basically to show you some cool tricks or tips and basically help you write up this lab report. So first thing you need to do is student name, the teacher name. Now this is a weird one because I'm actually the teacher. Actually, you can just put Mr. Dalday for me. And the date, so whatever date you did this, 2 days date. Now, I give you a little bit of, hints on what to do and how to do things in the introduction, and all things in here should be written in complete sentences. Don't use, as much as you can, try to refrain from using the I and me and we and all of that kind of stuff, but you're allowed to use that. In full scientific reports, we try to refrain from that, but I think at the beginner stage right now, you're allowed to use that. A little bit of I and this, although in the introduction you don't really need to do a whole lot of what you did, because you're just kind of introducing what will be done in the lab and why we're doing it. The object, the objective, so I think that in the book they give you some goals that you want to do. What you want to do is kind of summarize these goals. Don't write it up exactly how the book asks you to, or the book tells you, but what I want you to do is kind of take the ideas here and write it into 1 or 2 sentences of here's the object or the goals of what we're trying to do here. A hypothesis we're going to go over in great detail when we cover this section, but it's definitely some kind of if-then statement. Now, some of these labs that we're doing, in fact, all of these labs that we're doing aren't original work that no one's ever done before. These are well-established experiments, and so essentially what you're doing is not really just trying to discover something new, but you're verifying. And so from verifying, all you need to do is say, well, if you do this, then this will happen. The materials, oh, I'm sorry, the mouse is a little funky. Okay, the materials. Now, the materials are already listed in your lab manual, and so I don't expect for you to type up exactly what the materials are. In fact, you see it in black here, so that means you don't need to change it. But all I do is say, see lab manual for complete list of materials. I'm a big fan of a picture being worth 1,000 words. So you can feel free to type up exactly how you set things up and all of that. Or you can set everything up and take a picture of it and include it here. You can draw a picture of the setup, but I'd like for you to include that in this tab right here. And then any additional equipment, like for example, with this particular thing, I'm using Google Spreadsheet. I will be using that software. So I basically replace that. So I got to make it black so that I know I'm done with that. I don't need to do anything additional. Yeah, that's it. That's actually the only program I'm going to be using. So anything else additional to what the lab book already has, if you've used other things to maybe make this experiment safer or make this experiment more accurate or better, then also include that. All right, so now in the data portion, here's the part where you're going to be basically record all of the information that you've taken after you've gone through the procedures. Now, usually in a lot of chemistry full formal lab write-ups, there's a procedure section. And again, I'm not a big fan of you guys just regurgitating what's already written in the book, and that's essentially all you would be doing. And that's why I'm a big fan of these pictures, so that way you can take a picture and basically throw it in there. I have you skipping that section of writing up a procedure because, again, that's already written for you in the lab manual. But I do want to make sure that you record all of the things that they ask you to do in the procedure. They're going to ask you to collect all of this data. Well, you're going to need to make sure you make a little table where you collected all of the data. Now, for this particular lab, what we're doing is we're looking at how gas consumption affects how the weight of a vehicle affects the gas consumption of the vehicles. And so we have 11 different vehicles, and they listed out the gas mileage and the weight, and what we're trying to do is trying to find some kind of relation between them. So let's see, I'm going to go through this procedure and actually do this lab for you, and I'm on page 11 of the Microchem lab manual, and you can follow along with that. But it says, to determine the relationship between gas mileage and weight, plot the graph of gas mileage and weight. So what I did was, instead of actually using a spreadsheet or like a graph paper and a pencil and a ruler and all of that, I decided to go with a spreadsheet. And so I just basically typed up the data that they gave us. So this is what they're asking for. So what they want is they want for the x-axis to be the weight and the y-axis to be the gas mileage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go Insert, Chart, and it's going to create a chart for me. Okay, so right now what it's saying is the y-axis is the weight and the x-axis is the gas mileage. That is opposite of what I want. So I think what you can do is they have a new chart editor, and I never actually looked at this new chart editor. But I'm going to guess. I'm going to play around with this and see what I can figure out. Let's see. We're going to edit the x-axis, and we're going to make it. Right now it's taking B1 to B12 as your x-axis, and I want it to be taking the weight. So I'm going to change that to a C. I'm going to change that to a C. All right. And the series, which is the y-axis, I'm going to change that to a B because I want my gas mileage to be the y-axis. Okay, there we go. And I'm not a big fan of this legend because there's no point in having that because there's only one thing that I graphed, and so I'm going to have none there. And it says, draw a smooth curve through the midst of the points. So what I can do is, instead, I don't have a ruler. I guess I could print it up and actually draw it physically, but there's this nice little feature that says, let's see, I wonder if I have it under data. Use add series horizontal. Gosh, I remember where it was, but now I need to find it again. Horizontal axis, vertical axis. No, we don't want grid lines. There's, oh, here we go. It says trend line. It's under series. There we go. So I can have it draw a linear trend line. And what a trend line is it's a line that kind of, it doesn't connect the dots like we did back when we were in kindergarten. But what it does is it kind of catches as many of the lines, or it goes in between as many of the lines as possible, where you have just roughly about the same amount of lines on top as you do on the bottom. Now in this graph, it looks like there's more lines or more dots on the bottom than there are on the top of this line, but notice that the ones on top are further away, so it kind of balances things out. Now we can say, hey, this is a linear graph, and it definitely looks like a linear graph. Or we can say it's a curve, and there's your exponential curve. Or it's like a x squared kind of thing. And honestly, actually, x squared looks better than a linear to me. You can assume it's logarithmic or some kind of power series or some kind of moving average, which actually doesn't really work in this thing. In this particular explanation, I actually like the polynomial the best. But anyway, we'll just stick with the basic one. All right, let's see. This graph decreases from the upper right to the lower left, and it represents some kind of inverse function. So what we want to do is they want us to now graph the inverse of the weight, and then basically, since the inverse of the weight is going to be this. Here, let me show you. Actually, so you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this graph right here. I'm going to paste it right here. Let's see. No, this is my copy. Let me close the master copy because I don't want to screw that up. All right, let's do this. Okay, Control V. And this one says paste linked or paste unlinked. And basically what I think that means is if you paste link, then what happens is this gives you the option to, if you start changing things and this graph looks different, like let's try this. Let's change to a polynomial. Then inside of your Google Doc, if this were a regular document, like a Word document, it wouldn't have the option to be able to change that. But in the Google Doc, since you linked it to that graph, that specific graph, you can have it updated. And it will update with how the new graph looks if you start changing things or adding in data and that kind of stuff. Again, this is kind of like the table of contents where it doesn't do it automatically, but it does give you the option to update it manually by just clicking on that button. So I think in this lab, what they want us to do, let me just move this out of the way. Is they want us to find one, so this is W right here. They want us to find 1 over W. So I'm just going to say that equals 1 divided by that. And then I can just kind of drag and drop that spreadsheet. So what it does is it continues that pattern. So it says, all right, you want it to equal 1 divided by the cell to the left of me. And it just kind of does that for every single one. And then this one, honestly, they wrote it really weird in the lab, and it took me a little bit to kind of figure out exactly what they want. The way they wrote it technically should be equals 1 divided by this number times 10 caret negative 5. But the way they should have written it is with an extra parentheses, because they want that 10 caret negative 5 to be attached to that W that's in the denominator. So I need to put a parentheses around everything. And then that gives me the answer that they're looking for. And then I'll scroll down. Now, honestly, there's too many numbers. There's too many significant figures. And I don't think that we've explained significant figures at this point yet, but you'll learn about those. For now, I'm just going to limit this to say it has like that many correct numbers. I don't need to report every single one of those numbers because I don't think it's that accurate. All right. Now, what I'm going to want to do is copy and paste this table into my lab report. So I can just copy and paste the table. Now I know that in the actual lab write-up it only asks you for these last 2 columns, and you can manually input that, but if you already made a spreadsheet, then you can just copy and paste a linked spreadsheet into there. You can always do unlinked, and that's perfectly fine too. But I actually don't mind the linked one. I think it's good. I want to make my graph look, or my table look a little bit like this table over here. So I'm going to right click this, go to table properties, and click on that one right above this light blue or cyan. There's that gray. I like that one. That was a medium sized gray. There we go. And we'll bold everything in there. And we'll do the same thing over here on this. Whoa. I lost it there. Okay. Hold on, sorry. There's a slight delay in this thing. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to press Shift. I'm going to click on that to select everything. Right click it. Table properties. Cell background, the one right above cyan. There we go, and we'll bold that. Cool. All right, so I have the full table in my graph, where it has the gas mileage and the weight and the 1 over weight and the 1 over W times 10 to the negative 5 weight. All right, I think what they want to do is they're trying to prove to you that this is actually an inverse relationship. So what I want to do is I want to map the gas mileage to the 1 over W and see if that gives me a positive linear line. Okay, so I think what they're going to ask me to do is they want, you know what we'll do is we'll just copy this graph right here and we'll paste it again, but instead I'm going to change this graph a little bit. So this is graph number 2. We can call it that, graph 2, and the x-axis they want to be the weight. Oh no, the x-axis, the y-axis they want to be the mileage, so we have that there already, but the x-axis they want to be the inverse weight, so not this column right here, the C1 to C12, but this column right here, the E1 to E12. So let's do that. E to E12. There we go. And so this is showing that, okay, wait. This is the, I gotta double click and change that. That's not weight. This is the gas mileage. Okay. And this right here is the inverse weight. Cool. All right, I'm happy with that. So I have 2 graphs here. I have this graph right here and I have this graph right here. If you want to see this thing in more detail or you want to play with this more, what you can do is you can move it into a bigger sheet. So you go edit and I think it says move to own sheet. There we go. So there, now it's its own chart as opposed to stuck inside of that one smaller spreadsheet. And you can play with this. I'm not sure exactly how they decided to tell you to do the trend line. Oh, they said use a ruler, so I'm assuming they're thinking that it's linear. So there's your line of best fit. You can even print this out and extrapolate this thing and use the y equals mx plus b formula to figure out exactly how big this thing is. And I'm not, am I recording even? Let me check. Oh, I am. Good. Whew. I was worried that I wasn't recording. I'm looking at that. Okay. And, oh, we should copy and paste this sucker into copy chart. And we'll paste it over here. And let's see. There we go. And what you can do also is you can add in little what you call it, they are, oh, they're subtext or headers, or basically tells you what figure you're using and that kind of stuff. So we'll call this one, and I'm going to do it in black text. And instead of going normal text, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to heading 3, and I'm going to call this graph 2 of my scientific analysis. Okay. And I'm going to call this graph 1 of scientific analysis, the one up here. There we go. So I'm going to go enter. I'm going to go to heading 3 and call this graph 1 of scientific. All right. The rest of this should be very straightforward. Now remember, when you start adding these things in and cleaning this thing up, you'll want to delete all of this helping text. So this text, this purple text, is really just to help you, and then the purple text is to help you, and then after you're done with using that, you want to delete it. And actually, I realized I put the graphs in the wrong spot. The graphs goes in analysis and calculation, so let me just move those real quick. Okay, let's do this. Alright, I'm going to cut that and put that right there. I'm going to move this one over as well. I'm going to cut this. Let's see. Cut that. I'm going to put it down here. There we go. And this particular thing doesn't have any kind of error calculation to worry about. And I want you to answer the questions. Again, very important, read the directions. Answer all the questions in complete sentences. So even though I have the question written down here, I want you to restate this question. So, like for example, what do you learn from your second graph? All right. So what I'm going to say is, you don't need to say what I learned, or I can basically say the second graph shows the plot between the second graph shows the plot between the gas mileage versus VRSUS versus the inverse weight. Since it is a straight line, a straight positively increasing line, this shows that the graph, or that the data, is inversely related to each other. This means that if one increases, sorry, each other's two separate words. This means that if one set of data increases, then the other set will decrease proportionally. I think I spelled that right. All right, cool. And again, since I answered that and it's no longer the question part, I'm going to change that to black. Cool. All right, then I want you to draw a conclusion and I want you to cite your works. Now, honestly, I like to use this citation machine to cite my works and whatnot. It's really easy and quick, and you want to do things in the MLA format. And for the most part, you're not going to be using any other books, but if you are using other resources to kind of give you some information, and I actually highly encourage it, then make sure to include those. But I've on every single one of your labs, I have the lab manual for the book that we're using included in here as well. So you'll probably use that and some other resources. Make sure to list them in alphabetical order. And so that pretty much sums up what your labs are going to be like. When you are done with this, I want you to make sure that you, all right, so click on share to finish off this initial lab setup thing. Click on share and click get shareable link. And I want you to copy this and then go back to our original thing back here and then paste it into this document right here. There, paste. And then you submit, and I'll basically be able to